Hey y'all, and welcome back to Joey's Booked. Today we are going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of March. Quit licking me. Like rate Love to Nerds the Fresh. We have whatever book I've grabbed. A Monster Husband. Tabitha. Who is Laura? Who is Laura? Let's outro this and get it over with. With this March wrap up, sorry if I sound a little bit hoarse. We had tornado weather last night, and even though nothing hit where I'm at, every time this happens, it kicks up the dust, my allergies all act up, and I just get kind of feeling. It looks like we've got about 12 books to talk about, and this has been my month of finally finding 5 stars. I have completed some goals and things for my challenges this month, and we've had some not so good books as well. But we're going to talk about all of that. So this month I think I completed 2 vlogs, one of which may not be up yet, where I read books that was like weird women's fiction kind of stuff. For that, I read books in it, including Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth, Bunny by Mona Awad, which I do not have physically, Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. And then we also did another episode of Third Time Tries, which included books such as Private Rights by Julia Armfield, The Unworthy by Augustina Bazterrica, and Bird Box by Josh Malerman. For my monthly Stephen King, I actually technically got 2 Stephen Kings in, because not only did I read The Dark Half, which was next in publication order, I also read a coffee table book with Nightmares in the Sky. So then, outside of videos, I also completed my buzzword reading challenges for the month, which is through Books and Lala, if you have not followed that challenge yet. Even though we had Mother Thing listed for books with the word thing in the title, I actually decided to pick up a new release that I've been really excited about, which was Something in the Walls by Daisy Pierce. And for the cover challenge of books with books on the cover, we have What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama. And then for my books for my 25 for 2025, I actually got behind on this month, and I only completed one of those books, which would also be Private Rights by Julia Armfield. So I believe on my 25 challenge over here, I still have 20 books to read. So with a couple stats ran through, let's go ahead and jump into my actual ratings. So as always, we are going to be talking about our books in order of lowest rated to the highest rated. And we are going to start with all the books that I either did not rate or I DNF'd. As far as DNFs this month goes, I am so upset about this, but I couldn't do the writing. And I had to DNF Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth, which is probably one of my favorite covers of anything I've read this year, and I was so excited to have this on my shelves. But alas, we must unhaul. I hated this. And it wasn't... This is nothing against Ainsley Hogarth, but I could not jive with the writing for some reason. There was something in the writing that just did not click with my brain. I tried to listen to it on audio, and I didn't like it there either. And ideally, I should love everything about this. So we are following Abby and her husband, Ralph, and they have recently moved in with Ralph's mother. So Abby's mother-in-law. And shortly after, Abby's mother-in-law has unalived herself. And when I say that, I mean it happens in the first page. It's not a spoiler. Even though I didn't know that's what was going to happen because I didn't read the full synopsis. But that's not what it's about. It's really about how Abby and Ralph deal with the grief of the loss of her and like how it affects past traumas in their lives and relationships and things in their life. But here's what I couldn't deal with. Abby. I could not deal with Abby. And I'm supposed to care about Abby, and I'm supposed to care about how she's grieving. But all Abby wanted to talk about, I want to tell my husband I'm pregnant even though I'm not. No. No, you're not. We don't need all of this. We understand you want to be a mother, and that is great commentary, but the way, in the obsessive nature of, I'm going to just keep telling my husband all of these things to make him feel better, even though it's also what I really want, and if I want it and I say it happens, it's eventually going to just happen. You have named this child you don't have. I don't want to be in this headspace. It just didn't sit right for me, the way that this presumably meant to be unlikable character was handling things, and it just, I couldn't stand it. But even then, I could have moved past it had I liked the writing, and I just didn't. There's something about it, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the character voice. I don't know if it was just Denz at the time, but it just didn't work. So sadly, this was a DNF. Not for me. And then we also had a non-rated book this month. And I just didn't feel right rating this because I don't know how. And that's going to be Nightmares in the Sky by Stephen King. Nightmares in the Sky is a coffee table book and a art book by the photographer F. Scott Fitzgerald, who basically was taking a bunch of pictures in New York, I think, of different gargoyles and grotesques and faces and things like that. And there was some cool imagery in here. But Stephen King wrote the foreword for this, which the whole reason I ever even would have bought this. And I wanted to read the text. And when I say he wrote the foreword, I mean he wrote like 30 pages and like technically almost 8 chapters worth, because why was this a chaptered coffee table book? Even though it was just straight text the whole time of his own musings over gargoyles and things like that. And I don't know how to rate a coffee table book, and I don't know how to rate a book that is mostly pictures. That's just, it's not something I would ever pick up on my own if it wasn't part of my Stephen King challenge. But I will say, this has proven a rise in my desire to find gargoyle horror, because everything I look up online is some weird monster romance, and I don't want that. I want to find some gargoyle books. So if anyone knows of any good gargoyle books, help me out. I feel like this is a underrepresented creature, and I want more than the old 90s movie from Disney. I think it was a TV show. I did not have any 1 stars this month, so let's skip on ahead and get in our 2 to 3 star category. Going into our 2s, I had 3 2-star books this month. And some of these were ones I was actually kind of excited for. So to start us off, we are actually going to be starting with Brat by Gabriel Smith. And this was one I listened to fully on audio on a drive to my parents to go visit them over my spring break. And it's one that I had wanted to read, but I didn't realize how quick the audio would be, so I read almost all of it on the drive there. And just finished it up once I got there because I had like maybe 20-30 minutes left. It was like a 5-hour audiobook, which was crazy because I think that's like a 300-page book. But anyways, in Brat, we are following our narrator. I don't remember his name, and nor do I have a book to look off of to find out. Anyways, we're following him as he is dealing like with the death of his dad, but then like his skin starts to peel off. And like full sheets. And there was some nice like kind of gory body horror kind of moments, but like it was written really hard to follow, which I knew going in was something that either people absolutely love or they absolutely hate, and it gets weird. I didn't connect to the grief side of what was going on and the depression side, which is something I normally do love. I will say, with the skin peeling, there were some neat kind of horror-ish kind of moments. But then there was also, like, all of this, like, is there a haunting thing? And, like, is there these other supernatural things happening? And it just didn't quite piece together very well for me in a way that I liked. I followed it at the time. It's not memorable at all, which is kind of sad because I was really hoping to love it because it was weird. And I just couldn't move past this man being like, yeah, mass amounts of my skin is falling off, and then someone just looking at him and like, ooh, that sounds like eczema. Sir, lady, whoever you are, if I take my arm and an entire sheet of my arm, and I'm casually like, oh, look, this fell off, and you said, that looks like eczema. What? That's not what eczema looks like. I'm sorry. Also, oh, that's what my dermatologist said. He gave me some lotion. Like, is this supposed to be a satire or something that I'm missing? Is there some kind of comedic side to this that I just wasn't getting? Because the amount of times, oh, he gave me some lotion, or, oh, that sounds like eczema. Oh, whatever. No. Go get a second opinion from another doctor. It didn't work. I gave it 2 stars. Also in the 2-star category, we have What You Are Looking For is in the Library. And for the first time since I've picked up this book, I have said that title correctly. And this is by Michiko Aoyama, and this is translated from Japanese. I've had this on my TBR for a minute as something more cozy. It also fit that buzzword challenge. But I really just sometimes like a short, little, cozy, translated book. And I was really hopeful that in this I would get that. And I think I was supposed to, and I just didn't, because I could not handle the fat phobia. This is supposed to be 5 stories about different people who go into a library, and after an encounter with the librarian, that they just happen to get recommended the book they need to make a change in their life. Great, cute, whatever. And it's people of all different ages, people of different places in their life. So we have a retiree. We have, like, a 21-year-old who's working in, like, a clothing store. We have a woman who has just had to cut back on her work life because she's had a baby, so on. Let's just read a couple of descriptions of this librarian together because it has me angry still. Heading over, I poked my head around the corner and yikes. My eyes nearly jumped out of their sockets. The librarian is huge. I mean, like, really huge. But not as in big, but as in big but not fat. She takes up the entire space between the L-shaped counter and the partition. What did you mean? And then it gets better. Sitting behind the desk is a large woman. By large, I mean very large. Her head rests on top of a body that looks like it's on the verge of bursting, with no neck visible in between. She reminds me of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from Ghostbusters. When is that ever acceptable to say? But wait, we had our 3rd short story. Behind the counter sat a large, pale woman of indeterminate age, but with her ivory apron and smooth, unblemished, pure white skin. She reminded me of the Disney Baymax character. No, not acceptable. The final one, and this set me over the edge. Her white button-up shirt is so tight, the buttons look in danger of popping off. And her pale skin reminds me of a white, glutinous rice cake in a shrine at New Year's. I understand the culture in Japan is a little bit more accepting of things like fat phobia, but there is no situation in the world it is acceptable to refer to someone as a glutinous rice cake. Unless it's Gideon. We all know we struggle a little bit. 2 stars on its own. I don't even care about the stories at that point. The Fat Phobia on its own, it was just like instantly just like there's no higher it can go. There was like 1 story that did anything for me anyways. And our final 2-star book would be Something in the Walls by Daisy Pierce, which was my other buzzword book. Buzzword books have not been hitting for me lately. In this, we are following Mina, who I am really proud that I remembered the names in this. Mina is a child psychologist who is like brand new to the field, hasn't even really worked a job, and she's at like this grief counseling group, grieving the loss of her brother who had died years ago. And she meets this man who is a journalist and is also like grieving his daughter, and he kind of hires her on to go check and see what's going on at this small town in, I don't remember if this is in Wales or where exactly it is. I know it's in Britain somewhere, like small town vibes. And there's this girl named Alice who the town is starting to believe is a witch, but then there's also maybe some questionable haunting things, and like she has this questionable ability to speak to the dead and other stuff. And he thinks that Alice might actually be able to help them communicate with the people they've missed, and it kind of is, are they investigating this as a mystery kind of thing, or what's really going on? And this had so much promise in concept, but the execution just did not work for me, and I found myself really bored throughout it. After DNFing Mother Thing, though, I was like, this is my only other book with the word thing in it, so we're gonna finish it. Plus I paid full price for this because I was really excited for this release. This read like a not very good thriller to me. It didn't feel much on the horror side other than some creepy moments with Alice, and from some other reviewers and stuff I've seen almost the exact same thing of Alice had some creepy moments. Everything else was meh. And I don't know, it just kind of felt over the top, kind of ludicrous at times. I could have phased out for half the book. I don't remember half of what happened at this point, and this was one of my later month reads. And I don't know, it read too much like a thriller. I don't normally like the way thrillers read. I've read an S.A. Cosby last year that I did enjoy a decent bit, which is completely different than a lot of the popular thrillers that I hear about, I feel like. And then I've read like some Taylor Adams, but those I know were goofy going in, and I was ready for them to be goofy to a degree. Well, one of them was goofy. The Last Word was goofy. No Exit was not as much, but like, I at least enjoyed it. For this, I don't know, it didn't work. The ending I really didn't like. I didn't like a lot of the outcome, so it's gonna be a 2-star. And then we did have 1 2.5 star, and that would be The Dark Half by Stephen King. This was not a strong Stephen King reading month. We are really on the look for another good one, which hopefully should be coming soon. In this, we are following Thad Beaumont. And Thad Beaumont is a writer who has been writing successfully under a pen name. You know who else has written under a pen name? The Stephen King guy right here. Creepy background images on all of his old books, by the way. Like, what is this supposed to be? Is this a shot for some boy band? Like, what is this? Anyways, so Thad is a writer, and he has basically, in the media, decided to kill off his alter ego. It's like he's writing from some form of experience. Thad, though, has started to notice these weird things going on, and it's almost as if his alter ego has come to life, who is George Strand, I believe was the last name. And he's a not very nice man. But really, this is just about a writer, and his alter ego comes to life and is like out to get him and the people in his life and things like that, because he's not happy about being killed off. And then there's this whole thing with the birds. So, I don't know. This was like a weird doppelganger kind of story. I understand where he was coming from, considering the Stephen King, Richard Bachman stuff. It just did not fully work for me in the way I want it to, and I wanted more from it. I will say the prequel to this is one of my probably favorite kind of prequels that I think I have read in a Stephen King book, other than maybe It. Like, that was creepy, and then everything else was just boring and mundane for me. And it became almost like slashery, and then the weird thing with the birds and the sparrows, and it was like, what's going on with that? But it wasn't enough to keep my interest. So unfortunately, that's 2.5 stars. So I only had one 3-star this month, and that's going to be Private Rights by Julia Armfield. And this is just a really disappointing one for me because there's so much promise in this story. But I also feel like this got the really unbad rap of following back-to-back 5 stars for me. And it just could not live up to what I wanted it to be. I don't think at this rate that Armfield's ever going to match my love for Our Wives Under the Sea, even though, I mean, it was fine. In this, we are following 3 sisters at this, like, post-apocalyptic world. It's, like, almost like this drowned world, like, the world started to flood, and the life has kind of had to adapt, but it's still kind of functioning the same at the same time. So, like, one of them is a therapist, the youngest one works in a coffee shop, and then I don't remember what the third one did. These 3 sisters, though, have recently lost their dad, who was, like, responsible for all of the architecture and infrastructure that created this new world that was able to survive on land. And they all had a really bad relationship with him, but now he's gone. And it's kind of how, in this post-apocalyptic situation, where the waters are rising and there's this rumors and things about, like, where do we go from here? It's how these sisters deal with their grief and their strained relationships with each other. And all of them are queer, all 3 sisters, which we love to see representation, but I don't know. This exploration of grief just didn't work for me in the same way as Our Lives Under the Sea. I don't think I really like the multiple POV as much in this, and I just wanted more. I think in the end, I just didn't care about any of the sisters. Like, I didn't really connect to anyone. And the writing was fine. Julia is always a great author, and I'm going to continue to pick up her stuff because there's going to be something else out there that clicks. But I wanted more apocalypse. I wanted more of this flooded world. I wanted more that was happening. And I just wanted to connect to the characters, and these characters just didn't work for me. We also had a 3.5 star this month, which has now been returned to the library, Bunny by Mona Awad, which is one of the probably the most surprising book for me this year. I always said I was never going to read this book, but then the vlog chance came up and it fit a video, and here we are. But I actually enjoyed this way more. So in Bunny, we are following our main character, whose name I forgot again. Sorry. Oh well. We are following her, and she is, like, in this master's program for, like, writing. She's in this master's class with these other girls who she calls the Bunnies. And it was almost like this Mean Girls kind of thing, but make it a master's writing program. These girls, when they are called the Bunnies because they call each other Bunny, and they say weird things like, oh, hi, Bunny, oh, I missed you, Bunny, oh, Bunny, oh, Bunny, and it's weird, and it just never really sounded up my alley. I'm not super into the academia kind of stories, not that it was, like, super dark academia or anything. They start to take this interest in Sam. We're gonna call her Sam. And they want Sam to become the next Bunny. But then they've got this other dark, weird stuff going on. And this, I really enjoyed way more in the beginning than I thought I was going to. And I think I followed it okay. But the ending gets weird. And I understand what happened by the end point, but there was some fever dreamy kind of stuff that started going on that I had a hard time following what was happening. And that does not work for me in a book. I love a good fever dream. I need to be able to follow what's going to happen in the fever dream. The moment that I don't know what's happening and it's unclear, how do we get from point A to point C, and B is just all over the place, that's where it loses me. I like the weird. I'm fine with unclear things and ambiguity. Cool, whatever. I don't really know where the connecting point and the ending really fit within there. So because of that, I did have to give it 3.5 stars, but that is still a far better rating. And they recently announced a sequel for this, and I think I might actually check it out. I'm intrigued enough, and I'm really excited to get into more Mona Awad. Now we are going to get into our 4-star books. So I do have 2 to talk about. The first one's going to be Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison, and this is following Rory. She is a twin, and her twin sister is pregnant, so she has been dumped by her boyfriend. So Rory moves in from her big life in New York City back to this small town to go and help watch after her sister and kind of just be there for her so she has someone as she's dealing with this pregnancy. But then, as you can probably tell from the cover, Rory has this encounter and starts to think she is turning into a werewolf. And it just kind of goes from there. It's very character driven. It's not really about all of the horror, but there were some nice descriptions and some gross scenes and stuff that happened, especially with like Rory turning. But it's not like one of those lovey-dovey, well, okay, that's a lie. This is 4 stars because there was a pointless romance in it, and I actually kind of forgot about it, and that's really why I gave it 4 stars. The romance in this was pointless, but everything else about this was fantastic. It was very insta-lovey, it was very, I didn't like the characters together, all of that. But like, the metaphorical and like comparisons and parallels that they made to Rory turning into a werewolf and her sister changing, like body changing throughout pregnancy, I thought was so unique, and I really think this is a little bit more underrated. Now, this is the only Rachel Harrison I've read, so I might put my foot in my mouth later, but this really worked, and it was just a really breezy, easy read that I liked way more than I was ready for. I thought this would be one of my leisure favorites, just from synopsis alone. And I really am excited to read more Rachel Harrison now. These female horror authors, let me tell you, they are just hitting for me lately. Like, I've always supported it, I've always loved it, I always loved to see it and read diversely. This month, especially with it being like Women's Month, I need more. I need more, and I need more of these specific authors. Anyways, you don't care about my ramblings. This is a wrap up. I do have a confession to make as we go into our next 4-star book. I'm rating this prematurely, but I am almost done with it, and it's a book of short stories. So I know that even if the last 2 stories I have to read, which is like a significant amount of this book, because there's only like 6 stories, even if they're both 5 stars, it's not going to get anything more than a 4. And it's got to be really, really, really bad, which I can already tell it's not going to be, for it to get less than a 4. But I am counting this as a March read, and I don't want to leave it out of my wrap-up. And I'm probably going to be finishing it tonight because it's the 31st. So, and I'm just going to sit and read and binge it because I just want to. Because I love these books. And that book is going to be The Sword of the Destiny, which is the second, technically, book. It's like the prequel. One of the prequels in the Witcher series by Andrzej Sapkowski. I love the Witcher series so far. This is only the second book in, and I know there are some problematic things, and there's a lot of problematic things about when men write fantasy and stuff anyways that happen. I get it. But there's just something about the world. There's something about following our Witcher, Geralt, who is like a monster hunter in this like fantasy world, and he's got his some companions and stuff he meets along the way. There's this love interest in the sorceress Yennefer of Vanderburg. There is this bard named Dandelion in this. I've been listening to this on audio, and I think I'm just now realizing the first book they called him Dandelion, and I'm pretty sure they've just been calling him Dandelion in this one, but I could be wrong on the audio. Let me know if someone has some clarification on how to pronounce his name. This is the second book that's a set of short stories, so it's just random tales of Geralt's travels and working and different relationships and things like that. In this one, I gave the first one The Last Wish, which technically comes after this one, but they're prequels, so like it just kind of fits in the right way. This is the recommended reading order I've seen. But The first one, the stories I connected to a little bit more, and I just thought some of the commentary and stuff in them were a little bit better. There's still some stuff in this that I like, and there's not been a story I've disliked, but I'm just not connecting to them in the same way. And because of that, I think it is going to be a 4-star. I'm almost positive, and that's where we're going to kind of cement it in as far as this wrap-up goes. I will be probably finishing this tonight, though, so it is going to be a March read if I have read over 60-something% of the book already. We have finally reached 5 stars. And when I say we have finally reached 5 stars, I mean this month I had 2 back-to-back 5 stars in the same video, and it was a miracle. Now, I will say one of these books sits a good bit more highly up for me on that 5-star ranking, because the more I have sat on it, it has become an all-time favorite. But let's talk about the other one first. So, my first 5-star would be Bird Box by Josh Malerman. A third-time try has finally given me a win, which I know this is only like the second episode, but that's not the point. I didn't think this was going to be a 5-star. I knew a limited amount about Bird Box going in. Like, I know, like, you couldn't see the creatures or whatever, and it was kind of post-apocalyptic. But I loved this. There was something that Malerman does when he puts you in a limited perspective that just works so well. And I loved it. I loved so much about it. I loved being in Mallory's head. I loved watching her navigate with these children and just the space that Malerman puts you in. I enjoyed seeing the beginning of this apocalyptic scenario and kind of getting to go back and forth and kind of piece some things together. It just worked. I still need to watch the movie, and I'm still really excited too, because I just don't watch a lot of TV or movies anymore. But this one, I want to check it out. I highly recommend this. I see why this is probably his most well-known book, and I am really excited just to read more of his stuff at this point. And possibly a new all-time favorite that has just sat with me this whole last half of the month since I read it over break. Also a third-time try. And that book is not going to be one that is for everyone, but it just works for me. The Unworthy by Agustina Bazterrica, translated from Spanish, an Argentinian author, and the author of one of my all-time favorite books of all time, Tender as the Flesh. In The Unworthy, though, we are following a unnamed main character who is living in this also ecological post-apocalyptic world, but it's more that the world is like dried out around where they are, but she is part of this religious cult. She is very low down on the totem pole, so she is like one of the unworthy. Part of the Sacred Sisterhood, she wants to raise to be one of the enlightened who are like the most esteemed. And it's like the sisterhood, they only accept women in. There's only like one man who's at the very, very top, and that's all they let in, who is like him. He is the guy who is over above. And there's all these like levels and these different types of chosen people who have been like mutilated or something within like them being chosen and giving gifts. And we also get to see her slowly start to remember her life before. And there is just so much packed into this, and it's written really strangely and kind of hard to follow. It really reminded me of The Handmaid's Tale in the fact that it's almost like journal entries. But like sometimes it will literally cut off mid-sentence because she's talking about how she's just writing and hiding these on strips of paper and things as she can. And it is dark. It is bleak. There is some good horror type stuff in this. Like, I would love to see this world recreated into a movie just because I can already kind of see it cinematically and like CGI and things like that to kind of create this world. I just loved it. I don't know. The ending worked for me. I just loved following this character. It is not going to be writing that is for everyone. Even if you loved Tender as the Flesh, this may not necessarily work for you. I love it. I haven't stopped thinking about it, and I am going to personally rave on it, even if you hated it, so sorry. But seriously, 5 stars, possible new all-time favorite. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of March. We've got pretty big stack, and technically one we gotta hurry up and get finished tonight. But if you have made it this far in the video, thank you for checking it out. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what was your favorite read this month. Or if you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts. I look forward to seeing you here in a video very soon, hopefully. And until then, keep reading. Alright, bye.